Here we go. All right. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up in the debate today. I'd like to thank my partner for giving me the support he can. I'd like to thank my opponents for hopefully giving us a compelling argument. Looking forward to it. So let us begin. So we're going to talk about this topic. This House would take action against domestic violence. And observation 1, subpoint A, we reserve the right to define. We're going to make this to a policy debate. Subpoint B, the terms. The first definition is this House, which would be Congress. And to take action, require bilingual assistance. Subpoint C, the plan, ensures all citizens are entitled to a bilingual assistance. And subpoint D, net benefits. Advantage 1, justice. The harms to this is that innocent people are going to prison. And the problem here is in San Francisco, there are 20 to 30 people going to prison. Most of the time, they were the victims. Yes.
Can I just hear your plan text again?
The plan is to ensure all citizens are entitled to bilingual assistance.
Congress will pass a law ensuring that all citizens
That's what it
I
is.
only hear if you say it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you have to say.
Okay, Congress is going to pass a law that ensures that all citizens are entitled to bilingual assistance.
Perfect.
All right. So the inherency to this is that no federal says that they have bilingual assistance, and the solvency is now they have to have bilingual assistance. The impact to this is that these people will no longer be stigmatized. A lot of the people that get arrested due to lack of communication are Asian and Latino people. And what happens is that when they get arrested, a stigma will increase that will actually let other people know, oh, they're minorities, they're doing something wrong. And with this plan, it's going to change that. It's going to prevent these people from being stigmatized any longer. The second impact to this is that it will increase stability in homes and family and structure. Domestic violence can cause so much harm to stability to this already. But by arresting the wrong people for wrongful accusations, it could actually worsen the structure much more than it already is. But with this plan, we can prevent that from these kind of things to happen any longer. And that's why we should implement these plans further. Yes.
Can you just give me a title on that advantage? Sorry, I didn't really
Okay. Advantage 1 is justice.
Justice. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Advantage 2, communication. The harms to this is that officers, due to the fact that they don't know the language very well, they most of the time are arresting the wrong people, like I said before, due to their ignorance. A lawyer from a civil rights case told a victim in a San Francisco case that she should not speak due to the fact she couldn't speak English, but in the end she ended up getting arrested anyways because like a lot of the officers don't really understand Spanish. So due to the fact there was no communication in anyone's part, she was arrested for due to a fact there was a domestic call. So they had to arrest somebody. So they weren't very certain what to do, and the inherency is there is no bilingual assistance. I mean, where is the help? All these people, like 30 to 20 people, 30 to 20 people could be arrested right now, and there's nothing we can do about it. They're not getting any help. They're not getting any assistance. They are unable to get the help they need to prove their case, to show that they are innocent. And the impact here, the first impact is that there is that communication is important. It is key. We need to prove to them that we care about their life. We care that they are wrongfully accused. And if you live a prosperous life and you're trying your very best to make sure you provide the very best for your family, you deserve to be protected. You deserve the right to have a better standard for yourself and for others to see who you truly are. The second impact is we're going to have less wrongful arrests. With more bilingual communication, if we federalize this plan, we can have more people to help out these families in need who are struggling with speaking English. And like I said before, we can remove the stigma that these people are creating harm to our society. They're just human beings like you and me. If we were to go to their countries, we would be treated the same way. And and like as the old saying goes, uh, be treated as no treat others the way you would like to be treated. And with this idea, I don't see why it's so hard to treat your fellow man with respect and honor. And just because they speak a different language does not mean that they are any less human than you are. And we should definitely put a more bilingual plan for our federal government so that everyone could have equal treatment and they could have a better chance to have to have an opportunity to have a decent living. And domestic violence is a bad thing, and everyone goes through it. But unfortunately, as we've seen over the years, not everyone gets the same amount of treatment due to the fact that you couldn't speak English in this country. I mean, I don't think that's really fair. A lot of these people came to this country for a better living, and a lot of them are sincerely trying to speak English, but due to the fact they're so busy taking care of a family, it just makes it that much more difficult. And with everything I've presented to you, this is why you should vote for the government, and which is why me and Joe are awesome. Thank you. Here.
You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna go off case and then on. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for coming for this first debate ever held in Antarctica, and let's get right into this. So my first off case argument is going to be a vagueness critique of them. Their plan is vague. They don't give us any details specific. I came and I asked a question. Could you explain your plan? And they didn't give me any details except Congress passes a law that requires bilingual assistant. This doesn't tell us what state, like how this law is passed. If every state needs people who can translate every single language or every type of language, so it takes our ground. It takes our ground because we don't have the ability to run arguments like inefficiency because we don't know if the plan is going to require Vietnamese speaking in every single state or just what's going to happen and what the bilingual requirements actually are of these countries. So I would call this potential abuse because they are taking away our ground and they're not being clear enough with their arguments of whether or not what this plan does, what languages are required, how is it getting passed. We've got no timetable, no anything. We only know that Congress passes a law that requires something, but we don't know any of the specifics on how their requirement, which steals our ground away from us and doesn't let us run arguments like inefficiency. So, Judge, I would be wary of that fact, and unless they really do a good job explaining it, I don't think they should have access to it. But my first disadvantage one, you can title this federalism. Right now, the states have jurisdiction over this. Whatever power is not given expressly in the Constitution to the federal government is allowed by the states. But again, since we don't know what their plan is or like how it infringes upon states' rights, we can't really be sure about this, Judge. But their plan is going to take powers away from the states and their ability to monitor it effectively. Their plan is going to violate these states' rights. It's an overarching plan that makes every state conform to everything. That takes away a state's freedom and ability to do that. So my impacts here are it's going to decrease the power that individual states have. It's going to make states less cooperative. It's going to increase people's dislike of the federal government because it's taking away these inherent rights held by the states, and not only it's not going to be able to get done because it's something that only the states can do. So you really can't do anything. So now, Judge, I'm going to go on to my counter plan, which is going to pass the same law that they pass, except with the states. But it's going to be by a state-by-state level. So, like, the states are going to implement this. Specifically, our state's going to be California. Our inherency here is their state is overarching. It takes away the rights of the individual states to come up with the best, most effective plan. Yes, Joe?
So are you just passing it in California, or like when you say state by state, what do you mean and how does that process work?
Well, we're going to do it on the state level, and we're going to make sure it happens in California. But our counter plan is, the California passes that same bill because this doesn't infringe on states' rights. So I'm going to talk about inherency. The same inherency they had for their plan, nothing's changing unless through the government. Solvency, I'm going to talk about, it decreases the same amount of, it decreases domestic violence on these levels, but the net benefits here, it doesn't bite into the counterplan of federalism because it doesn't take away states' rights, it doesn't make states less cooperative, it doesn't make all these bad things happen that it's enforceable, first of all. So it's more solvency because you can actually do it because the states actually have the power to pass this law and their plan of the federal government doesn't. So and now let's get on to their on case. And my on case is going to be very similar. Right now they talk about justice but they don't really give into specifics on how these countries are going to actually, no, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Let's go into an advantage of our plan, and this you can entitle efficiency. Right now, a single state has the ability to efficiently and know what kind of what population they have in the state, and they're allowed to set rules that make sense for them as a state and be the most efficient. So if you have a large Vietnamese-speaking force, you need someone who speaks Vietnamese as opposed to having someone who speaks Mandarin Chinese. You might not have that population, so you don't need that. So this will be able to increase police resources. It increases efficiency in these specific areas. It is tailored to the community as opposed to... So what you get is increased police resources, better translators more translators of a specific language as opposed to somebody who speaks a language that nobody in that city or state needs. And so let's get on to their on case. Right now they talk about justice, but there is no justice in this case because literally the federal government has no ability to pass it. It will go overturned in the Supreme Court because they don't have this power. So so there's no solvency. No one's getting more justice because they're not doing anything. Secondly, to their communications thing, again, our counter plan gets the same amount of communication barriers, except it's actually feasible because they have no solvency. They cannot prove that their plan has any sort of is constitutional, so it won't be able to affect anybody in anybody's lives. And then I'm just going to talk about our vagueness argument again. If they come up and they start adding all these details about their case and how it's specific and how it's able to avoid these efficiency problems that I outlined, it's able to avoid the 10th Amendment that says states have the power to do anything not specifically outlined in the Constitution, then that's going to really bite hard into our vagueness argument, and don't let them do that, because that will be really taking away our ground and taking away my ability to come up here and speak, so thank you.
All right. Roadmap. I'm gonna go same order that leader of off went in, with 3 off case arguments and then case. The Prime Minister came up here and echoed what I think are some really important words that sort of sum up our advocacy today. And that is the golden rule. Treat others how you would want to be treated. And that's what we're trying to do. That if you're in some sort of conflict, you would want to be able to speak with someone who can understand what you're saying. And that by doing so, both the person involved in the conflict and the law enforcement officer can all do their jobs better. So let's get to this vagueness argument. So their first point was they said that our plan is vague. So my first response is they don't tell us why it's important that plans be specific. People pass vague plans all the time, even in Congress. So that happens in real life. Even like the Affordable Care Act, for example. Yeah, you might know a few things about it, but it's really pretty vague as to like what happens and when it happens. So they don't tell us why that's important. But then they say that we didn't give him the details he wanted. We did answer his question, and we told him Congress would be passing this law. So when he asks us, in his first point, like, they didn't tell us how it's passed. Well, we did say Congress would pass a law, and that normal means is going to be enough there. And when they say, like, does this mean that they have to teach them every single language? Our response is basically, yeah, as many languages as possible. And that's not necessarily new. Like, there is already, right now, in the status quo, bilingual assistance that some police departments use, but the issue is that it's not all over the country, which is what we're trying to achieve. So then when their next point, that so they're saying that our plan takes their ground because they can't run inefficiency arguments. My response is run the inefficiency argument. We're not going to delink it. It will link. So we're not taking that ground. We're going to have to hire a bunch of more people. And police, it's going to make police officers' jobs probably more difficult. But we think that it's definitely worth it to help victims of domestic violence. So then their voter is basically potential abuse. I'm going to turn this and say, Judge, don't vote on potential abuse, only vote on articulated abuse, and there's none here. So now let's get to the disadvantage one, federalism. So their A point is that they say states have control of bilingual assistance policies now, and that I guess by the 10th Amendment, that technically could be true, but no one really has control over it. But I think the important response here is to the B point, and this is a no link. When they say that our plan takes powers away from the states and violates states' rights, we don't. That's where we're saying no link. We're not overturning any rulings of any states, and we're not disallowing states from overturning this in the future. So if they want to run arguments on how states are going to do that, they can. But we're not taking any powers away from the states or stopping them from legislating anything. Yeah, what's up?
In the Constitution, who has the power to control the police force?
So the police force is actually not mentioned in the Constitution, but there have been federal laws that have been enacted since then, as well as state laws. So it's really sort of a bilateral control. But we don't take away any power from the states. So then on their impacts, where they say, first, this will decrease state power, it doesn't, because the states can overturn it if they want, and it'll decrease states' cooperation. it won't, because there's no states that have said that like they don't like this policy, so no one is against it, meaning that this policy change is not going to make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. And then their final impact of that disadvantage is that this is going to decrease like the people's trust in the government. And I'm going to turn that impact and actually say how our plan will increase people's trust in the government. So yeah, that's basically just the turn there, that we increase people's trust, because when law enforcement is actually listening to them instead of just arresting them, we think that's going to increase people's trust. Now, let's get to counterplan. So their counterplan is just a simple pick. All they're doing is our plan because they know that it's good and has solvency, except they're just doing it in California. So my response, my first response is, okay, that means that they get 1/50th the solvency that we get. We're doing it in all 50 states. They're just doing it in California, meaning all the harms that go on across the country, they don't address at all. So it's like they're saying, yeah, that plan is good, but we don't want it to help as many people as possible. So we're helping the most people as possible. Then for competition, they say it's competitive because it doesn't bite the federalism disadvantage. But the federalism disadvantage is no link. So like our plan doesn't bite the federalism DA either. And so it basically means like our plan includes what they're doing plus more. And you can't pass a state law and a federal law because A, there's shared resources. That means that the time that takes to do that isn't going to be the same. But B, that they would be different in some sense, that like a state law could require a certain amount of officers, whereas federal law would require like states to do it on their own. There are a lot of like issues here where you can't do both at the same time. So then their only advantage to their counterplan was about efficiency, that the state can do it better, that this is going to increase police resources. The state can't do it better. They might know their own locale, but they're not going to be able to get people who actually speak those other languages that they need from perhaps like another country or another state that specializes in that. If they're only doing it in that state, they're not going to be as efficient in actually carrying out the policy, which is like listening to people. And when they say that this is going to increase police resources, I'm going to turn this and say it's going to decrease police resources, because the state is going to be like, okay, now we're the only ones doing this policy, so we should do it well, and so police are really going to try to spend a lot of resources on it, and so that's going to like thwart their previous crime fighting efforts. Yeah.
So are you saying that in these communities that are full of bilingual people or people who only speak one certain languages, a state will not be able to find anyone who speaks both English and the desired language?
I just think it'll be more difficult. Like, if, for example, there might be more Mandarin speakers on the East Coast, and so therefore, like, those states might have more Mandarin speakers there, as well as, like, more training in Mandarin, whereas we don't have that here. So it makes it really difficult then for California to try to go all the way to the East Coast and get someone to do that. So now let's get to our case. First, when we talk about justice, they have one response. They say that just because the federal government doesn't have the power to pass it, we don't get solvency. The federal government absolutely has the power to pass this by an act of Congress, so we get access to all of our solvency, which is, again, like stability of the family, of the home. We remove the stigma that minorities who can't speak the language get arrested when they're innocent, and that ultimately provides justice. But now let's move to our advantage on communication. Their only response was that, well, the counterplan gets the same solvency, and my response to their counterplan gets 1/50th the solvency that our advantage 2 gets. So at the point that we're getting more communication and less wrongful arrests, you're going to be voting for the government team today because we ensure justice and communication.
Sorry, like knocking.
No.
Talk about it later, though. It's okay. Yeah. It shouldn't stop or anything.
It's cool as long as it just tells me the time.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to stop.
8 minutes.
Hello. I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. My wonderful partner Spencer and the leaders, the Prime Minister, his partner. First, I'd like to start this off by saying that these wonderful gentlemen over here, their plan is actually very vague, and it's bad not to give us details because we can't debate. I mean, they haven't given us enough grounds or enough information towards their plan. And sorry. And just want to reiterate that these fine gentlemen over here have basically stated that their plan can't exactly work without the approval of state. So basically, that should be for us, and they actually helped us on that field. States tend to do it a bit better regarding towards domestic violence because it's according to each and everyone's needs and wants. And I think for each state, they each have statistics proving whether or not how high it is on their level, and I'm pretty sure they can accommodate each and every other person with it. I'm sorry, that's all I got. I'm running blank.
Just take your time. And just fill up the gaps as much as you can.
Yes it?
Mhm.
Yes it?
Yeah, just go for it.
Okay.
Why is your plan better?
Our plan is better because it will help more people with us because we can meet their needs. Our efficiency is definitely better because we can provide them with much more security towards this type of domestic violence with our law enforcement, and we can provide them with much better resources, programs that we can offer them, each according to each state and how they feel that it should be held accordingly. Their plan gets basically overturned. Again, with their plan, it's actually very vague. They give no detail, especially towards the type of languages. They only spoke of only two minorities, which was Asian, and Latino. They really didn't give anything more towards other minorities out there.
when you said our plan was going to be overturned by who and how?
Supreme Court. How the Supreme Court overturns everything.
Supreme Court would overturn it just like it overturned everything. That's all I got. Sorry.
I get 4 minutes.
Yes. You do.
Okay.
Hold on, wait.
Is everyone ready?
No. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's just get right into it. I'm just gonna rephrase exactly what my partner was saying, and then I'm gonna get into my voters. So, one last time, thanks everyone for enduring this frozen tundra to listen to this debate. My partner just got said how the Supreme Court would overturn this law because, like our federalism argument, they don't have the power to even do it. There's no way for them to enforce it. They admitted that the 10th Amendment would has the power, doesn't give the federal government the power to enact this law. Therefore, they receive no solvency. Like Joe said in his first speech, when he was trying to counteract our vagueness argument, that he said the states might be able to overturn it, and they would do that through the Supreme Court. So my first voter is going to be no solvency because it will get overturned by the Supreme Court right away. It will be overturned because it's abusing states' rights, just like our we said in our plan. So therefore, they help nobody. So our voter one is going to be no solvency on their part. So then you should just vote for the op because we just get that ground of the status quo. So since they solve nobody, but now I'm going to talk about our second voter, which is the counter plan. The counter plan helps 32 million people. It actually accomplishes something. So they say we did 1/50th of the solvency. We get 32 million people. We get solvency for 32 million people as opposed to the 0 people their plan gets. And finally, and then after that, my next voter is going to be vagueness. And this is where the debate really comes down to. Like my partner says, in order to have a debate, we have to be clear on the plans. We have to know which languages are being forced for these police precincts to learn, like what languages are there. They didn't tell us the specifics. They didn't tell us how they would enact it, what state it affects, if it affects everybody. Because they didn't tell us that, we aren't able to run things like inefficiency because we don't know. Or we can't run our is it going to be overturned by the by the Supreme Court argument because we don't know exactly what the law does, so we don't have any way of knowing how it violates. So right now they're in a double bind. Either you can agree with us that they were vague, and then you can agree that it's not going to be overturned by the Supreme Court based on some technicality or something, some part of their plan we don't know. Or you can say it wasn't vague, but then they get no solvency because it does violate the Supreme Court. So either they can have no solvency with the Supreme Court, or they can be vague, and either way, Judge, you should be voting for us on that grounds. And finally, my last voter is going to be plan versus, is going to be efficiency. With our system, even if somehow theirs passes, ours has an efficiency that theirs just cannot match. California knows the needs of California's citizens better than the federal government does. They're able to take people from these communities who are who know the language, and they are able to use them as translators and provide that option better than the federal government has. California might not have no need for Farsi that maybe a state like Texas or New York does, but their plan takes away that. It makes each state waste resources. So thank you.
And I talk about all the solvents we get.
Okay.
Those are more like responses to that voters.
Okay. All right. Okay. This has been a very compelling debate, so I'm gonna finish off here. So I'm gonna begin by responding to their arguments. First, I'm gonna go talk about their argument about us being about like our plan being overturned. The Supreme Court will not overturn the federal laws. Like demilitarizing a policy happened to the federal police already, and you were talking about our vagueness about our plan, about like what languages specifically we're talking about. But here's the thing: we're not talking about 2 or 3 languages. We're talking about multiple languages across the United States. I mean, if we only pick specific ones, we're not gonna give equal treatment to those who don't have a common language here in the United States. So that's unfair treatment, and we should open our horizon about what bilingual languages we're talking about, which is why we want to implement a plan for a federal government. It will help out as many people as possible, while your plan only helps out California. Oh, this is actually one of our voters. So when you talk about only helping out in a state level, only California, we are helping out in a federal level. So all of the United States, your plan only helps out 1/50th of the country. And we want to help out as many people as possible, not only a very few. And we talked about all right, and our first advantage, which is justice, we show that people are stigmatized due to the fact they are arrested, and with this plan, with our bilingual language plan, we're gonna be able to help these people out more, so they will not be stigmatized as often as they do, and with the federal law plan, we're gonna give them bilingual assistance so that they can get some more help whenever they need it, and And then our second advantage is communication. It would decrease wrongful arrests. It would it would take away officers who do not know the language. It would prevent them from arresting the wrong person, and it would decrease miscommunication. It would decrease incidents that would happen in San Francisco due to the fact they have a large population of people who do not speak English, and it would just be just a good time for everyone here. And a lot of these people have families. I mean, like for a lot of you, like nothing is more important than family, and you want to be able to be there and help them out, despite the fact that the family is struggling with the language of the country that you're currently living in, and if you ask for help, I don't think I'm pretty sure you all agree that it is not right to be arrested for calling for help just because the person who you're asking for help does not know how to speak your current language. With this federal plan, it's not just happening in California, which is what their plan is just focusing on. It's happening across the country. I mean, yes, we do have a large population in California, but there's also large populations across the states as well. California is not a country. It's only a small chunk of a larger scale we call the United States of America, and that's who we want to help the most. And just because these people don't know how to speak English, they can still be U.S. citizens. They like a lot of them have the right to be here, and we should show our appreciation by we should show that we care about their well-being by having people who can speak bilingually to give them help whenever they need it. And like I said before, it's not gonna overturn because the Supreme Court won't overturn federal laws. It just does not happen. It's just simply ridiculous. And the vagueness, we're not being vague. We're protecting the rights of as many citizens as we can because not everyone speaks the same language. Yes, we've seen a couple who have spoken the same, but there are those few who need help and are not recognized as much as often. And for that reason, you should vote for the government. And thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Hey, Stefan,
Yes.